Welcome to episode 11 of Stayin Alive with me, Jesse Smith, a podcast about how artistic folk keep those creative juices flowing. What's up, everybody? I hope you're all safe and well. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. So, as lockdown eases further, we've now been told from August 1st we'll be able to restart live indoor performances, subject to the success of some pilot shows. I wonder what these performances will look like. I mean, I, for one, hugely welcome the news and look forward to getting back on stage ASAP, even if the new normal is a little bit different to what we remember for a while. So, on with the show, and this week's guest found fame in 1981 with his band Haircut 100, whose debut album Pelican West peaked at number 2 in the UK album chart. His songs Fantastic Day, Love Plus One and Favourite Shirts, Boy Meets Girl were all smash hits until the band's collapse shortly before production was about to begin on their second album. Since 1983, he's been a hugely successful solo artist and has written some just beautiful songs such as Whistle Down the Wind, Kite and Blue Hat for a Blue Day. I've had the pleasure of working and writing with him, and he's been a great mentor to me over the years. We had such a cool conversation that took a few interesting tangents, as it usually does, so I really hope you enjoy it, and I'm so lucky to have him on the pod. This week's guest is songwriting royalty, Nick Heyward.
Today on, tell me, is it today on? Is it today or is it today or yesterday?
Well, it's taken us all by surprise, isn't it, really? I mean, if we would actually have all prepared for this for years, wouldn't we? If we were coming. You know, we would have all got our gear and all got ready. Right, it's coming, right, okay, I've got some savings, here we go, going under, right, okay, get creative.
Yeah, exactly.
The trouble is, it just took everybody totally unaware, and everybody's kind of just making their 100 quid last a lot longer than, and you know, I mean, first thing I did was just, well, actually, before it kicked off, I dug up the lawn, because I thought I'm going to need vegetables, because I decided to devote my life more to creativity anyway. I just wanted to step out of because I'd gone over to the UK and gone to lots of meetings. And, you know, sometimes a process of finding out what you do want to do is by a process of doing what you don't want to do.
Sure.
You know, that's how you find out, by doing, you know, because somebody can say, oh, do you want to do this? And you go, yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I want to do that. And then you do it and you go, oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, and then suddenly sometimes you would go literally like, there's no way on earth I can do this. Yeah,
absolutely.
You know, it does definitely focus and clarify what you do want to do. So I had a load of meetings with people, not just record companies, you know, because they're all lovely people, all great and everything. But it just clarified for me what I thought was a proper way to go.
Absolutely. For me, it manifests itself almost physically, because you've known me for a long time. I'm quite an emotional person, and I find it very difficult to hide my emotion. If I'm not forced, but if I'm working with something and it just doesn't feel right, it makes me moody, and I'm not the sort of happy-go-lucky person that I normally am. So it's almost like a physical manifestation for me. I'm just like, I need to get out of this, you know. And I think your body just tells you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like Ashby. He's a Cancerian, isn't he? And he's more kind of like in his shell, and you don't really know what's going on. And you don't, does he not? You know, so you are opposites. That's why you're in a band and you work creatively and stuff. And your mates, you can tell that one completes the other in that way. You know, you're very open.
Absolutely.
Shell. You know, you don't have a shell.
Yeah. No, I don't. I told the shell to fuck off, and it's like.
Yeah.
I was thinking earlier, like the last time that we saw each other, I think, unless you can remember, I think it was in Soho. We had a milkshake with Ollie, your son, obviously, and I was going through my vegan phase. It was in Soho somewhere, and you told me I looked really thin and pale, and I could do with some fish. That's the thing. Which and I am basically a pescatarian now, so I don't know whether it was you or not, but it kind of rubbed off. So, but I feel kind of better for it anyway. But
no, because what I discovered was that it's not so much that you need fish; it's that you need to have less carbs. Because I found if I was just living off carbs, it triggered off lots of other things. Like it triggered off allergies. Whether it was allergic to trees or whether it was being allergic to sensitive to foods, it just made everything heightened sensitivity. It just wasn't. It was in an imbalance somewhere. So when people start adding in things like small bits of fish, and you start becoming more oriental in your diet somehow, it more balanced. Then just generally, I mean, I don't think the body knows what is what, but just when things are more balanced, it can kind of settle down. So it's probably not necessarily fish. I mean, I'm sure there are people that know their onions quite literally, and they'll go, I need to add some more beans, and I need to add some more peas, and I need to add some more walnuts, and whatever it is. But the trouble is, when you're a touring musician, walnuts, peas, and certain foods are just not available anyway. So I don't know about you, but you end up taking with you loads of food. So you've got.
I really struggled in certain parts of Europe and stuff, and I know tons of musicians that are vegan or vegetarian that eat so badly, like you say, because it's quick, fast food. It's carbs and sandwiches and cheese, and too much of that stuff isn't good, is it?
And then you can suddenly just like get on a downer. Something can happen, and another thing happens, and then you don't eat for a long time, and then you won't be able to deal with the situation so well because you've got sort of like heightened sensitivity going on. Because sometimes having a great diet gets you through lots of things. It's like yoga. If you do yoga, you can get through pretty much anything. I mean, when I look at young people doing yoga, I think good on you, because you've got a whole life ahead of you of doing yoga. That means have a breakup. You won't hit you so hard as if you weren't. If you're not doing yoga, you might get straight into drink immediately. You won't eat well. You take a dive physically, and then you're prone to dis-ease in your body. And before you know it, you might have a whole year or two of completely losing it. And then one thing leads to another. And before you know it, you're spiraling into something. And then, it might take your friends or just going so bad that you come out of it. And sometimes that suffering can be the thing that wakes people up truly. But you still, when I look at somebody young person doing yoga, I think they haven't got that experience so much because, they're there and they're strong. That breath that they're doing means great decision making.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's great decision making, isn't it? In one's career, in anything. Like when this virus kicked in, it's great decision making. Not going into a panic immediately and not losing. It was, I don't know about you, but like watching some of the film of the hospitals and people dying was, you felt like you were just going to everybody's funeral. Last week it was harrowing, and you can't stay in that place. You can't stay just going to everybody's funeral.
No, absolutely. I know 3 people kind of that I knew directly that have actually passed away from this so far. So it's been horrendous, but it was Italy for me, because Italy sort of hit before. It was bad there before here. And it was seeing the scenes of, because I've been to Italy so many times and I love the Italian people and Italian food and, lots of the Italian culture. And it just really hit me seeing that. And, but yeah, you've got to be proactive, haven't you? Like you're saying, I very quickly, I don't know why, decided that I was going to do these online gigs, and they've been brilliant. Actually, it's been so good just for me mentally more than anything. Just knowing that I've got a gig this week, and people have been really generous. They've been donating for me doing the gigs, and it's kind of as I've gone on, I've got the tech sorted out, so it looks better and sounds better, and it's just given me things to do and think about, as well as this podcast, of course, which is another thing that I've been meaning to do for a long time, and it's sort of given me the kick up the bum I needed to do it, and it's been so lovely. It's, just to catch up with friends like yourself that I haven't spoken to in ages, and yeah, just
I've been watching you here. That's fantastic.
Oh, well, thanks, Nick. Well, you were a big mentor to us back in the day. I was thinking as well, I mean, for everyone listening, I mean, my band, The Quote, supported you guys when Haircut 100 reformed at the O2 Indigo, wasn't it? And that's almost 10 years ago, Nick.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's extra fast. That's the Concorde of time.
It is. Absolutely. And obviously...
4 years?
Yeah. No, totally. It feels the same to me. It feels like yesterday. I remember it so well. And, but that was such a big opportunity for us at the time. So, and obviously with our songwriting, when we were recording that album and everything, you were really kind of a mentor to us. So, looking back, I don't think I realized how much I appreciated that at the time. So thank you for that.
No, thank you. I mean, it's a strange record business that it's turned into, even from that point, because it was going through a transition even then, wasn't it? It was a huge transition, like the old way of you couldn't just go up to London, play a lot and get signed. That seemed to be something that was in the past too. Every channel you always didn't work anymore. Everybody trying a new channel or something, because what they used to happen was there were cultural waves that happened musically, and they always happened in London mostly, and then spread. Sometimes it was Manchester, obviously. There was a whole wave there, and Liverpool and things, but mainly there were these London waves of cultural waves, and you just hopped on. And it was just literally like, here's another one, and we're all now kind of jumping up and down in a ska band. Oh, now we're all kind of new romantics. Okay. Now, okay, there's a Brit funk kind of movement thing going on. Oh, I find myself kind of like dancing in clubs, and and I've got a band. Oh, well, all the band are doing it the same. Oh, we're there. Oh, suddenly it's possible, and you can, and it was down to your age as well. But I noticed that 10 years ago when we were trying to do it, it was a bit like, what was the music business? Nobody really knew what it was. It was changing so quickly. And then it changed quickly every year. It was getting faster and faster. It was like a runaway train speeding up. And until now, the difference between the corporate world and, I don't want to say the rest of us, but, everybody who is working in it and, being creative and earning a living and, just being in music, it's two completely different things. You've got like the corporate world going on where it's just, it's about 5 artists or something, all kind of just, that's it, and then you've got the rest of it. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't get my creative inspiration from those 5 artists.
No,
it's the stuff going on NPR. If you're on Instagram and you look at NPR and Tiny Desk concerts and things, and these brilliant artists and brilliant bands, whether they're solo artists or 2 people or the creativity that's going on, the ingenuity in the music is just so inspired, and that's where it's all going on. It's people, okay, they might not be highly produced pop music, but that's not an interest to people. Now I think what's happening is just that's the place to go. There's no down in the music world. There's a down in the music business because it's turned into whatever it's turned into, a kind of IKEA,
Yeah.
They've still got the same sofa they were selling like 10 years ago, and it's like, okay, but if you want interesting vintage stuff, and if you want creative stuff and everything, you don't go to IKEA, do you? It's the same thing. I'm so inspired by the bands and the artists that I see. I've just got a list of them constantly on my phone. You go, wow, who's this Spanish band that all the 5 people playing acoustics, and they stop at the same time, and they're really odd twisted chords, and they start up again, and they stop. I've got it on my phone. It's brilliant.
Amazing
Artists, just brilliant funk bands. Like there's a brilliant funk scene going on now, and you wouldn't know that if you didn't look in those nooks and crannies. If you just to the main chart, or you look to the corporate world, you wouldn't know that there's a brilliant funk movement, brilliant jazz movement going on.
Not at all. Yeah, I think it's about finding your people these days, isn't it? I think it's about doing it for yourself, releasing, really good stuff, and then going and searching and finding your audience. That's the difference, I suppose. Whereas before, maybe when you were starting out with Haircut, it was like, okay, we're going to sign you, we're going to put you out there, and we're going to make people like it. Like you said, kind of riding that wave.
It was like darts. There was one dartboard, and you all played, and you knew the game, you knew the rules, and that's what it was. And that dartboard was pretty much top of the pops, and the number one spot was the bullseye, and everybody was kind of like going there like sperm. Let's get to the egg. And if you fertilize the egg, it's like baby time, and then it's like you've got a whole life ahead of you, and then but now it's just okay. No dartboard.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
We're all just sperm floating around an abandoned womb.
we could go through that analogy and get. Yeah. A whole different thing now. One day support the Who at Wembley. They might not, you might say, oh my God, that's that crazy Spanish band I saw on NPR, but there's just brilliant musicians and brilliant players, singers, everybody's been growing into it over the years, because it's such a vast thing, music. There's more music shops, there's more music courses, there's more music everywhere, but everybody kept thinking, but doesn't seem to be any career for them. How is everybody going to sustain themselves? And now this is what it is. Everybody's just going out there and doing it anyway.
Definitely.
And that's why I think in the UK there should be more like NPR.
Yeah.
Like that, which NPR is just National Public Radio, which is just paid for by people. That's all. Because it's that thing of now you still have a thing of, okay, I've got my band together. Where do we get known? And you still have to get a promotions person. Whereas if it's National Public Radio, you just go on it, and it's how good you are. And it's just lots of creative people on there being creative and come and play in your town, and it'll be known. I think that the arts has to be encouraged in the UK and has to be invested in. But with right-wing governments, you're not going to get anything like that because they're anti-arts. They don't. The arts. They don't want free-thinking people. They don't want this stuff. So we'll just have to kind of fund it ourselves somehow. And I think that the main music business has to start helping out, because one thing that this virus has exposed, and there's a bit of an angry mob brewing at the moment, and that has exposed the inequality. It was covered up by live work. It was a bit like, as long as everybody's playing live, nobody will notice that we're taking £19 million a day of stripping. Which, it's something like £8 billion a year, And I've got friends on the music business side of it that have stayed in it, and they've got quite high up. And they're just becoming incredibly rich through this. And it's just an imbalance. It's wrong. So if they started investing, it's a bit like, the Troubadour in LA is going to go under. And it's a bit like time for some really well-established artists to get behind that and say, well, no, actually, I've got £20 million in the bank. I think we can keep the Troubadour open, actually.
Yeah.
It's like I can afford it kind of thing. And I think this virus is showing up lots of, I mean, even spiritual teachers, I've seen some of them, you know, posting throughout this, the virus going 50% off, you know, and you think, what, 50% off Sermon of the Mount? You know, what kind of spiritual teaching is that? You know, so you're just thinking, listen, you know, a spiritual teacher, an independent spiritual teacher, you probably will. I know personally they have about £45 million in their bank. It's just like, how much do you need? You know, and this is the whole kind of socialist ethic that goes on. You know, I think that it also showed up that, and yeah, definitely not a right-wing, too right-wing, far right-wing government doesn't, it may know how to win, but it doesn't know how to govern. And it's a bit like, hand that over to other people to govern, because they actually have compassion for people and the community. You know, you handle that side of it, you know, all the people that just want to ransack stuff, but there has to be rules in place. There has to be investment in the arts and in the community and in the NHS. I mean, I feel like I'm ranting a little bit here, but
no, it's okay.
Kicked off, I felt like tweeting, and I didn't tweet because I don't like getting into bun fights on Twitter, but I just felt like saying, you know, thank God we've got more missiles than masks.
Yeah.
More missiles than ventilators, you know. Oh, so good. It's so good there. I feel really protected, you know. Glad to know nuclear war, we're all burnt alive, that, you know, we all burnt alive together on some kind of like huge fire.
Yeah, I've never understood the whole nuclear weapons thing. I mean, I remember going on marches, you know, when I was younger for the CND and stuff, and you know, it's strange times we're living in, Nick, isn't it? But
it is showing up the equality, though. It's exposing a lot, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely, and
you know, it's exposing that. You know, you're seeing some people that are lording it up over others. You know, the kind of I'm all right, Jack brigade. You think, oh my God, you know, it's their time to shine. You know,
yeah.
you know, they're going to show you around their riverside property. You know, like it's like they've been waiting for this moment all their life to show you their riverside property, and here you are. You know, no self-awareness, no kind of like, oh, don't you think when people are losing their jobs, they won't want to actually clap and cheerlead you in this kind of like, in your riverside property, you know? So I don't think it's a time, it's not like a time to show up envy and jealousy, but it's a time to show up self-awareness and inequality, definitely. You know, it's a time more for people to help each other rather than lord it up.
Definitely. I think the thing we need more than ever, for me anyway, you know, just wrestling away from politics for a second, is music and stuff. You know, it's made me appreciate even more the music that I love and seek it out more. You know, because you know, on a daily basis, you know, there's not much we can do when we're just sat at home, apart from, I mean, for me to create and all that stuff. And you know, I think people are genuinely seeking out the stuff that we do more, and I'm seeing more guitars and you know, pianos and stuff on Facebook than I've seen in years, you know. And I mean, I went to Glastonbury. I've been to Glastonbury a few years in a row, but I went last year, and I think it was genuinely kind of like the Saturday afternoon, having been there already for 2 days before I saw a guitar, and I was just like, you know, and that's cool. I mean, that's the type of music that is out there. But you know, for people like us that obviously love writing and playing instruments and, you know, the sound of strings vibrating and stuff. I think it's putting that more into focus, you know, people, especially for people of my generation and older, you know. I think we're missing those drums and guitars and bands and stuff.
Yeah, well, it's anybody would think that it's disappeared, but it's not. It's, you know, like living in, you know, having lived in Reading, you know how important it is to be in a band, and how many bands there are still there, and how many people that want to be in a band. And, you know, it's almost like being in a band is a passage of rights sometimes, because you you know, you wouldn't take that away, would you? That thing, that camaraderie of being in a band with your mates.
No,
and
of course.
Meeting up, and you know, that's I've read. I've been reading lots of, you know, sort of books in this period as well, which is really good. But I really like Mark Commode's book, where he, you know, because he had that zest to be in a band and want to be big and be in a band. That's all you sort of like think of. It's kind of like, just, this is what we're doing, and you know, and so I wouldn't take that away from. I mean, imagine just not having that. I don't think communities would be as happy if you didn't have that. You know, you didn't have the music shop, and you didn't have going along there saving up and buying an instrument.
Sure.
And going and playing with other people and then creating something completely new. I mean, when people do this together, something really new happens, doesn't it? You know, it is a magical thing that happens when people just come together and play together.
Well, it's human, isn't it? It's a human thing, you know. And you know, if one individual sits on a computer and creates something with the same plugins everyone else has, it just becomes a bit monotonous for me. I mean, there's something soulless for me watching a DJ perform to 80,000 people, but when it's the Foo Fighters, it's just a different kettle of fish, isn't it? But did you always want to be in a band? I know when you started out, you were you started out as an artist, right? You used to paint and draw, and is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I liked record sleeves. You know, that was the main thing, and I became a commercial artist up in London to do record sleeves. They did record sleeves at this place I was working at, which was I was a junior, and there was a room where this guy called Joe McKiddy did record sleeves.
McKiddy, what a name!
Brilliant name, isn't it? And yeah, it was like the guy in the other room was called Harvey Rinkoff. And then the guy who was as a studio manager was called Ken, and he looked like David Essex, who'd been and he drove a green Scimitar car, which was the same car that Princess Anne drove at the time. So I remember being this was a posh car he was driving, and he wore a leather jacket with the turned up here, you know, and he had hair like yours, and he was all a bit like that, you know, and I as a young scrag from Beckenham, I like looked at him. I just thought, wow, these are people. These are real characters. You know, these are real people. And they had this room that did the sleeves in, and punk was just starting to sort of kick off at that particular point. And I was sent to Polydor Records, and I took a parcel, and it was this guy called Chris Parry, Fiction Records, and I sat outside this office, and I thought, oh, this is a record company, you know, this is amazing. I hadn't really thought about music doing it. I mean, I loved it, but I just didn't play anything, you know. So, and then this Chris Parry came out, and he said, "Okay, son, come in." So I went into this office, and he said, "Stick your demo on then."
Really? Wow.
Sorry, delivering some artwork. And it was even, oh, sorry about that. And, you know, I said, well, you know, I do want to get into music.
No way.
And he said, well, you know, if you ever do, you know, come back. And actually what I had delivered, when I gave it to him and he opened it, was In the City, the Jam's first album sleeve.
Wow.
Joe McKiddy was doing some artwork for that. And many years, not many years later, not many years at all, he came along to one of Haircut 100's first gigs when we played in Kensington with a band called the Tropicanos, who are like, is at the college there. And that's the only gig we could get at the college, supporting a band who played Caribbean music.
Right.
And so he came along. And he was going to actually sign us from that time. So he remembered being in that office. So I've always got time for Chris Parry. Because I mean, I wanted to sign to Polydor for that, you know, but It was a different thing that happened. But that's how simple the music business was then.
Yeah.
It was very simple there. It was that's all it was.
And how quickly from that moment did Haircut sort of kick off? Because you got famous pretty quickly, really, didn't you? I mean, you had a platinum selling album.
Yeah, I was really impatient. I was really, really impatient. And the door was closed. I definitely saw the door was definitely closed. There was no way we were ever going to make it. We weren't good enough, definitely. And we would have had to have become accomplished. And I thought, by the time we become accomplished, it's all going to pass us by. So there has to be another way. We send demo tapes to gigs, and they just said, no, get yourself an agent. So you'd send a tape to an agent, and they'd say, it's not good enough. And so I kept thinking, this not good enough thing, that's not good. That's going to keep going on and on and on. There has to be another way. So I was always thinking of another way, Mm-hmm. So me trying to get into some club, and not tonight, son. No. You go up to the doorman, and you're dressed in the best tie, going, and and he says no. And in the end, you just think, oh fuck it, I'm going in the back door. Like when we got in. Do you remember when we got in to see? Oh, who's that band with Nigel when we went to see?
I think it was Alt J, wasn't it?
J, yeah, that was it. Yeah.
It was their last gig. I think they'd just been signed, and they were playing the Borderline. It was like a fan-only event. We literally snuck in the back door, didn't we?
Yeah. Yeah. I've got so much respect for Nigel for doing that, because there was this moment when a guy obviously just saw us bunking in, and he looked at us and he went, "Oi!" And Nigel went, "Are we okay, mate?" Yeah. We went. It was so funny. I felt so much respect for you, Nigel. You are a really great manager. If you'd have like taken off like Joy Division or something, he would have been your guy. Manager. He was really good.
I've got loads of questions to ask you, but the one that really kept popping out as I was kind of listening to all your stuff, and revisiting some of it over the last few days is the kind of the themes in your music, which I love so much as a songwriter, especially the outdoor themes. You've got songs called Forest of Love, Perfect Sunday Sun, Club Boy at Sea, Whistle Down the Wind, the list goes on. And it's just amazing imagery. And I just wondered, like, are you a particularly outdoorsy person, and is that just dripping through into the music, or is it just the way that you think about love and life and the world? And it's quite unusual, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think as a younger writer, and digesting the world, and then trying to make tunes and things, and just doing stuff, and you know what it's like. You don't know what you're going to write, and then sometimes if you want to write something, it's not as good as when you just write something.
Absolutely, yeah.
So obviously the stuff like Whistle Down the Wind was that was actually a really early song that I've been playing around with for a long time, that came through a time when it was quite bleak musically, in about late 70s. It was quite Manchester certain ratio period. And Leeds was kicking off. There was lots of bands like Monochrome Set and things, and people wore raincoats, and it was called like the Raincoat Brigade. And there was Cocteau Twins. I don't know if you've ever heard of Cocteau Twins.
No.
There's so much music out there for a certain period, and I was really into bleakness, and so Whistle Down the Wind started that. And so I had Out the Window, Look What's Happening in My Prison, day by day, and then it used to go Skinny Black Trees, and then it went off into that bleakness. But then as I've got older, and then just felt connected the more and more with nature, first of all, it was just cinema. That was I was just connected through. I think also the bleakness of Whistle Down the Wind was the film Whistle Down the Wind, which was an influence on, say, that song, which was black and white. And if you see Whistle Down the Wind, the original film, it's really quite depressing, quite uplifting as well. But the landscape is quite down, and it is bleak. A lot of like Kess. Do you know the film Kess, with a guy who he wants to fly a kestrel?
I don't think I have, actually.
He has he's up in Leeds, and it's just that period. I remember that period so well. It was rough, and especially living in London. There was it was dark. There was 3-day weeks going on. It just seemed to be always cold as well, and so that was what I was initially writing about. And then it seems like now it's just better in so many ways. But my outlook has changed. I mean, in 1998, I felt connected to nature all in one night through suffering. My mum was told she was going to die from emphysema. All my relationships seemed to end in one night, and my record contract ended, publishing deal. Everything just ended in the same night. It all collided, and I was feeling very sorry for myself, and instead of the frustration of it, it got so bad that the other side of it just was the opposite completely. So I woke up and connected to everything.
I feel a little bit like that now, actually. Like I get so much pleasure just from going to the park, because we can't, and obviously living in London and everything's so quick, and it's gigs and earning money and paying rent and stuff. And we just went for a walk today. There's 2 lovely parks right by my house, and it really was just super uplifting, joyful experience, just going to the park. And I know what you mean. I mean, that record you're talking about, North of a Miracle, I've got it on vinyl, actually, and I absolutely love that album. I think it's such a masterpiece. But that was going to be a question. It was, I'm a lyrics person, and a lot of that album, musically, it's not so down, I guess. There's a lot of different things in there, isn't there? There's Spanish guitar and jazz and funk and pop and rock, but probably my favorite song, The Day It Rained Forever, there's a line, making love just ends in sorrow, and it's just heartbreaking, and I just wondered whether it was like a true reflection of what you were going through at the time, or whether that was intentional, or is writing a stress ball for you?
Well, actually, I remember living in Kew Gardens, which has become pretty posh, but it wasn't then, because it was my friend Dave who was a furniture. He had a flat there, and it was the way to live and work in London. And he, I was kind of doing demos for songs for things, and it's nice when you've got somebody that appreciates your music as well, that is encouraging, because I don't know about you, but it does spur you on, especially when I was younger. It was like you were doing something and you thought, I know I'm going to play this to such and such, because they'll appreciate this. And the demo for Day It Rained Forever had something in the lyric. I mean, I know it was, when it was recorded, it was with a 66-piece orchestra, and it was vast. At
Abbey Road, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Jeff
it was
Emmerich.
Completely changed from this little demo that was a double-tracked vocal, an acoustic, two or three acoustics playing together. And just, I used to love drumming on the demos then, so it was just dry drums, but it did that thing of, it got to the chorus and it just sounded massive. You know how you can get a chorus sounding massive anyway with just 3 acoustic guitars and some reverb on your voice. And I think that's why it was a bit like, okay, when I come to do this and record this at Air Studios, I'd love to have an orchestra. It didn't make it any more. I mean, it was quite, actually, the demo is really intimate in something, but it had that line, and it was because at the time I was actually supposed to be feeling elated because, everything was going supposedly on paper. If you'd write down like, wow, everything's wonderful, but I was depressed. And the thing with the only thing that kind of made you forget, I don't know if anybody else has experienced this, if they've ever experienced, full-on depression, is that sex is the only thing where you don't think. So for that moment, you don't have any thought, and you don't have any depression. You don't have anything. You're just, you're just having sex. And at the end of it, it's sorrow because you're depressed again. So where that line came from. So at the end of sex or making love, I was back feeling depressed again and feeling sorrow. So that's why making love just ends in sorrow. So I'm saying that, but somebody else might have just thought. I mean, I had one guy write to me and said, I've been gay for a while, and I feel this lyric. I feel like it's too much. It's too it's too much that's how my life is.
Why do you think you were so depressed at the time? Obviously, I know Haircut had obviously split up. I don't know whether it was anything to do with that, or because you were a big star back then, weren't you? Was it fame? Was it relationships? Was it just a number of things?
Quite a few things. I think I would have definitely been there if it hadn't have been fame. So when I was 16 and around 16, 17, I was prone to it. I remember,
Right.
I had the beginnings of oversensitivity.
Right.
when you're younger and you're sensitive and overly sensitive, you don't want to be. You just want to be one of the blokes. So you don't want to have these thoughts, and you can't talk to your mates about it unless they're sensitive to it. Otherwise, they're just going to kind of be like, "Oh, mate, sort yourself out." So you just want to not think. You don't want to be this sensitive. But if you are, then you just have to be kind of, I don't know, sensitive in your own lunchtime or in your own room, And that there's lots of other people going through it, but you just think you're the only person going through this. Everybody else is happy and everything else is happy, and there wasn't any of the social networking to, everything in place. There was nothing to. I mean, now if I get any kind of even slight mood or anything, I've got the tools to just be able to just nip it in the bud easy. I mean, nowadays with things like EMDR and EFT and you can just say it over and over. I feel absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Good times, and you feel absolutely amazing. It's just as simple as that. But when, back in that particular period in time and being younger, it was just working through stuff, I think. And so I think being in a band and then losing my friendships, that was the main thing. That's why I was so upset at the time, because I don't know about you, but if the guys in your band, ganged up on you and sued you, and it wouldn't speak to you and things, and that would be depressing, wouldn't it? Especially if you did it together.
For sure. Do you think there was resentment there because of the songwriting royalties and stuff? Do you think that's part of it? Because obviously you wrote all those songs, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think in bands sometimes the songwriter and the singer is like, people go, well, it's great having one, and in other bands it's a bit like they resent that. And I don't know why that is in some bands and some bands not, but I mean, I think I've had many years to think about it and work it all out and work out the kind of dynamics and the jealous brother syndrome that I seem to have, and I seem to attract lots of love-hate relationships that I don't do anymore. I've got zero tolerance for love-hate relationships now.
Yeah.
Or love addiction-y kind of stuff. Because I think you can get love addiction even with male relationships sometimes. People that just, they want to lock in and compete with you. Now, there's healthy competing, like there's getting a football and going and playing and trying to score goals against each other, or there's tennis and there's stuff and everything. But if somebody's locking on and trying to actually be competitive with you genuinely, they actually want, they would like to see your demise.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff that's pernicious kind of things. No, I haven't got time for that kind of stuff. So I just know that as a younger man, I just seem to just have that.
I know you wrote Fantastic Day when you were so young. Do you think that was like a counterbalance? Do you think there was a juxtaposition there and that came through in some of your music as well?
Yeah, I mean, Fantastic Day is just the sound of a teenager, It's the excitement and exuberance and thrill, that you have as when you're that age. I mean,
there's definitely an innocence about it, isn't there?
Yeah, and as a teacher, you know what it's like. If you're standing by people that age now, I mean, you can feel the energy. It's like,
yeah,
all over the place. That kind of stuff. And then as you get older, it's just a different kind of energy, and then you learn to be able to contain that energy. I mean, energy is an interesting thing, isn't it? Because sometimes I feel like I've been observing you as a singer, and I feel like, is he like waiting there, and he consciously becomes like something very, very strong and powerful, so that when he kind of unleashes this energy, it comes out. Because sometimes as a singer, if you haven't got that energy you can tap into, you just sing, and sometimes you need to have that energy from somewhere or something. You seem to have that energy it's just naturally there anyway. Like sometimes I have to tailor make it. Like if I'm going and doing a gig and you've got lots of people there, I have to certainly really wind myself up somehow to get the energy to be there, to kind of go, right, I'm gonna be that energy. And then when it's like some of these outdoor gigs that have been happening every summer, at the end of the 6-song set, I'm nearly physically sick. It's really overpowering. It's like, for a guy in his 50s to stand on us anywhere shouting is quite a lot. So I just feel like you're able to contain that energy like an eagle or an owl does when they kind of take off in the branch. They use that energy, they go down there, they grab the prey, but they don't waste energy, do they? They just kind of grab it and then they eat it, and that's that. It's not dispended, it's not wasted, it's contained energy. And so I wanted to ask you about that, how you do that as a singer, because you must go out and you can't live and breathe all that energy night after night, and yet you sound like you do. You sound like, rock is a lot. Like look at the Foo Fighters. I mean, how can you go flat out like that every night? I mean,
I think for me, it's an absolute kind of belief in kind of my technique and stuff. I think a lot of the training I had in my early 20s gave me the ability to seriously relax vocally, Is
that it, relaxing?
I think
for me it looks like you've got you're super excited.
Yeah, I mean, I am in terms of performance for sure. I mean, when I'm up there, I guess it's being super confident and then just trying to give as much as I can to the audience. I'm always focused on them and giving them a good time, and especially if it can be a tough crowd. If you're on a Monday night somewhere in the middle of a tour, I feel like I have to give even more and just make it larger than life and give as much energy as I can. Because as you well know, energy it's such a give and take, and it's such a snowball effect, isn't it? And by the, you get to this peak sort of towards the end of the gig, and where you've given them and they've given you, and then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And in this kind of energy exchange until it just explodes. And then, you do one more song and that's the end, you know. So yeah, I mean, I think it's about trusting and knowing that whatever I do is going to be okay vocally, I suppose. And then just a real kind of competitive edge of just like proving myself, I suppose. I think that's always in my brain. I mean, maybe it's because you know, most of what I do career wise, these, you know, apart from obviously romances and the quotes and stuff, is singing covers, and it's quite a competitive game. You know, you're always proving yourself, whether it be when I did the West End thing, or when I did the film thing, the Götterdämmerung thing, and I was turning up at these shows, and the people are there to see the show, they're not there to see you. So it's like, even though it's your gig and you've done it 500 times, you've still got to prove yourself every night, you know. So I think it's that partly as well, you know, it's that kind of willingness to kind of push myself and have to reprove myself all the time, I suppose.
And it's confidence, would you say? Because it seems like, you know, because have you ever lost that confidence? Have you and like felt exposed and felt like, oh my God, my confidence is not here tonight. Where is it? You know, and have you ever sung without confidence?
I don't think so, actually. I'm a very confident person. I definitely lose confidence in other aspects of my career, you know, in terms of songwriting and stuff. You know, I go through periods where I'll have, you know, 6 or 7 unfinished songs, and they'll be sat there like kind of little gremlins on the shelf, kind of poking their finger at me, like, you know, you're not good enough to finish me. And I have a real, you talk about love-hate relationships. Yeah. I have a real love-hate relationship with writing for that, in that way. And I'm so proud of so many songs I've written. But like you say, if you try and force it, they just don't kind of come out. But when it comes to singing, not really. I think I have this kind of innate confidence, actually. And I've done it so many times, you know, so many bar gigs where people just don't give a shit. And just this, I think I have this kind of innate confidence that, you know, that what will be. And so I don't worry about it so much. It actually performing on stage. I mean, so
do you think that you could use the same confidence in writing? Like, take that confidence that you have in singing and just do that with songwriting.
I definitely should.
The neck, you know, like you could, like, it's like, no. My mindset is the same as when I sing. So when you go into songwriting, it's just with the same daring confidence.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's really good advice. I mean, how do you approach songwriting? Do you, obviously you've been so prolific over the years, you know, you've got, is it 8 solo albums you've released over the years, or?
I'd like to be more prolific. I mean, I think that's why buying this microphone, I've got a really nice microphone that it's like I couldn't afford it, but I couldn't afford not to get it. It's got that stage.
What is it?
It's a Neumann 107, which is it's not the expensive one, but it's just they say it's the workhorse. You can do pretty much everything with this, you know.
Wow.
It records vocals really well, and it records acoustic guitars really well, which is what I want to do. You know, I've got setting up a booth over there where I bought some foam. I went to the local upholstery centre here.
Yeah.
Just bought like a load of foam, and so I'm going to make my cupboard completely silent in there, so I can get some really close silent stuff and really good recordings into Logic. And
is it like a day job for you? Do you wake up and try and write every day, or is it so when the muse comes? How does it work for you?
No, if I don't have the muse, I'll just force it, because for the same reason, there's so many tools around nowadays that you can just force anything. You can be whatever you like. You can do whatever you want. You know, I force myself to get up on stage and do that stuff, just not because, you know, when I'm driving there sometime and I pop into the service station and I'm browsing a magazine, I'm not thinking about anything. But I know that I've got the tools to be able to get in there when I know that I need to do whatever I need to do. You can just say stuff. I mean, affirmations are the most brilliant thing. You can just change the way you think immediately. You know, it's just as simple as that. If you think you can say I'm a singing sensation to the hour that you need to drive to the gig. You could start out at the gig thinking you're crap and awful, and everybody's going to be looking at my zit, and then by the time you get to the gig, you are just raring to go and like, give me that stage. And that's just by saying it over and over. I mean, how do we learn anything? How do we learn lyrics? How do we learn to do anything? We learn. That's how, that's
repetition.
How we learn. You just do it over and over. I mean, my mum was a secretary, doctor's secretary. And when you watched her on her typewriter, she was like Rachmaninoff,
Yeah.
If that had been a piano and she'd have just learnt to play the piano instead of a typewriter, it would be Mozart. And if you have taught her, I mean, Mozart was a child protege, but I'm sure people caught up with him, and you can train people to do lots of stuff. You can train people to do anything, but you can definitely, I look at it as a day. It's a day. It's fill it with whatever you want to fill it with. If I want to be whatever I want to be today, then just do it. So when I get up, sometimes I get up and I don't even know who I am, where I am, what's going on. For that initial big morning, you could throw the day completely. But I know with certain things you can do by just forcing yourself. Like I force myself into the shower for a cold shower pretty much every morning. It really works. I force myself to do breathing. I force myself to do yoga because I know that yoga, breathing, stretching is just so beneficial in so many ways. And you don't want to do it. You never want to do it, but you never regret doing it when you've done it. And that's the same as writing. I'll do say like a round of tapping, and I'll start with, even though I don't want to write songs today, I choose to love and accept myself. And 5 minutes later, I'm sat down with a guitar and something's coming out, and you can even tap yourself to you think you're a genius, and off you go, and you think it's genius, even if it's not. Even if it doesn't turn up for you, don't allow it, because apparently genius is something that just comes through you. It's not, one's not a genius. It's just allowing yourself to step aside and just be. If you sit there and just try and think stuff a lot of the time, it's just not going to happen. It's just like a comedian trying to be funny, or trying to write. If you're sitting trying to write a song, then it's not. But it's a process of doing. Whatever you do, one thing leads to another. It always, if you think that what you're doing is, because I don't know about you, but have you ever been writing and then your inner voice is saying, God, you're not really happening today, are you? Oh God, that's awful. What are you doing? And then you record it anyway, and then you don't listen to it, and then maybe you're checking it later and you go, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I go through so many processes like that when I'm writing. I mean, I go from going, this is amazing. This is the best thing I've ever written. This is actually not as good as I thought. This is shit. I never want to hear this ever again. And then a week later, I'll be like, oh, okay, this is quite good, actually. I go through so many processes. It just depends on the day, I suppose, for me. But I mean, that's super inspiring, Nick, what you've been saying. It's I think everyone can take what you just said to heart about, just repetition and positive energy and just telling yourself you can do something. I'm not sure everyone has the innate ability to write as brilliant songs as you, but because you must have been born with something, right? Do you think?
I think comparing yourself to others is where it can get that's a block.
Sure.
Because it's like I'll never be able to sing like you. I just won't be. But I can't think about that. That's a block. I've just got to do what I do. And I'll probably never, all of us won't be Paul McCartney. We'll never write Yesterday or Penny Lane or do this stuff, but it cannot stop us just being creative. Just we have what we have, otherwise it's kind of a similar thing to just saying, being envious of somebody who's taller than you. It's never gonna, you have to do it anyway. We're all unique beings, here to make a different view. We're different, and it's brilliant that we are. It's so unique. So you just have to accept that. I mean, perfectionism can be the worst thing, and that's why I'll nip that in the bud. I mean, not so long ago, I wasn't coming in my studio at all, and I'd made the room really lovely, and I thought, what on earth why am I not in there? And I was there for a week, and I said to Sarah, this is weird. I'm not going into that room, and that room is lovely. There's a block here, and I don't want to find out what it is. And so I was kind of like, thinking about it, because sometimes you can't see for the wood from the tree, so you just got to sort of like breathe, and say like 10 minutes of just breathing, conscious breathing, just focusing on breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, and suddenly, I know why I'm not going in the studio, or you'll find yourself doing something. And I read, something came to mind, and that was a moment when I must have been about 12, 13, and I was in my room, and I had a nylon string Spanish guitar, and I'd just got it, and I was practicing, because I joined Spanish guitar lessons at school, and I was kind of doing it quietly because Mum and Dad were downstairs, and so, my brother was in the other room, and he was kind of like, I think he had headphones on, so he could do what he liked. But I was playing this, and I was trying to play it quietly, and I heard, this was the 70s, by the way. This is not anything against my dad, but it was just like, shut the fuck up, So you're kind of like, okay, I'm going to have to go a bit quieter, and then you got even louder up the stairs, and you just think, okay, I'll play even quieter. Now, he lost it, and he came running up the stairs, came into my room, picked up the guitar and smashed it on the floor.
No way.
Walked out. And so I was left there with this broken guitar and sitting there and shaking, with sort of like fear. And so I thought, I've got to clear that, because that's a block right there. That is, and so I worked on it through tapping and stuff, and because whether you think that you are over stuff and whether you are, sometimes are two completely different things. They'll always there. Sometimes the past is always present because it's the present.
Yeah.
And so it's the body remembers this stuff, and so therefore there was this resistance to going into this great room, this sanctuary, this bedroom, and to be in there being creative, because if your creative self thinks that somebody's going to come through and smash, and be quiet and be quieter and be quieter, it's not really the.
You know what, Nick? It's super interesting you talking about this stuff, because basically all of the still vocal training that I did with a brilliant coach called Juliet Caton is based around this. I talked about this on another pod, but the fact you never hear babies lose their voice. They can scream all day long. You never hear a croaky baby, and it's about. A lot of singing, I think, actually is exactly what you're saying, is about unlearning sort of bad habits that we've got from people telling us to be quiet. And I mean, from a very young age, we're told to sit down and shut up and be quiet and shush. And, the shh, that, that's the worst thing you can hear as a singer, isn't it? Shh. Yeah. And I think it's really powerful, actually, what you're talking about, because you can, if you just stand on your front doorstep and shout, people would think you are so weird. But actually, as a singer, you need to be able to do that. You need to be able to use your true kind of primal voice, especially if, you know, the type of singing I do. You know, I'm like you say, I'm kind of screaming. You know, and yeah, you have to have this kind of almost. All this kind of raw, almost, you know, it is this primal thing, isn't it? And if you've learned over the years that's a bad thing, then I can see why that would be an issue. Yeah, definitely.
You know, I mean, the UK is quite, you know, known as the land of suppression. You know, shushed. I mean, it wasn't, you know, it's based in the Victorian era. You know, where you just had to be silent and quiet and.
You're out in Miami, aren't you? Obviously the people listening might not know that. So what's
up north
in Tampa? Yeah. So what's daily life like out there for you?
Yeah, it's I'll tell you what, it's like living. Have you ever seen Flipper?
Yes.
it's kind of like that. You know,
you have a dolphin.
Kind of. I just like. I really like boatyards. I'd like to live properly on a boatyard. I mean, we're in a real suburban street in Tampa. It's very unlikely, unremarkable street. Yeah, nothing posh going on at all. Just like a very American streets. You know, this would be like the equivalent of living in
Reading.
well, you know, expensive as Reading. You know, because the funny thing is you can live here and have quite a big house and quite a bit of space around you and maybe a swimming pool, and it would be the equivalent of about £120,000. And the policeman would live next door, and the carpenter and the plumber and the guy who's working in Starbucks and stuff, they would be there. It's very, very normal. Whereas in the UK, to have that, you'd think, well, who do you know that has a detached house even? You know, that's like a normal thing, is it?
No, exactly. Well, do you know what this pandemic has made me and Bea realize that, you know, the one thing we definitely need next time we move is a garden. You know, I mean, you know, I'm lucky in that I've got a lot of parks around us, you know, so usually it's okay. We can go to the park, and we have a lovely apart, you know, like a 2-bed flat here, and one room is my studio where I'm speaking to you from, and it's a lovely apartment, but just having that kind of outdoor space, and, you know, we really want to get a dog as well, you know, just is suddenly really high on the priorities list, you know.
But these are normal things. These should be, you know, this has become the normal thing that people younger cannot have gardens, you know, or can't have big spaces and things, and it's wrong.
Well, a lot of my friends, you know, can't even afford to have their own place, period. You know, I mean, there's married couples in London, you know, thousands of them that live with other couples or other, you know, and it's bizarre, isn't it? That you know, the way the rents are, a married couple can't live by themselves. You know, it's quite sad, you know, because rents are so extortionate. But,
it should be, you know, if you have a job and your partner has a job, then you should have a house, and that's what it should be, and have a nice garden. And I mean, that's a very normal thing, but that has become, it's not normal.
And I know you mentioned Paul McCartney just now. I just wanted to ask about this because I was listening to Woodland Echoes today, which I love. It's such a beautiful record, and it's just got Paul McCartney all over it for me. And you know, it's not trying to be Paul McCartney. It's very much you, but there's so many beautiful harmonies in there, and I just wondered if that was particularly inspired by McCartney. But another thing I felt listening to it was that it kind of had this Beatles-esque kind of thread through the songs. You know, there's lots of noises going on cuckoo clocks and bird song, and it, you know, it could almost be like, you know, like a kind of concept-y album, like a Sgt. Pepper type thing. Was that intentional, or?
Do you know, it just happened the way it was put together, and I was just being creative, and I suppose that's what happens when You know, when you're allowed to just be that, you end up. It's funny. This new one isn't so. It doesn't sound so Beatles actually. Strangely, the last one definitely had that, and I mean, I do really rate Paul. You know, I mean, I rate the whole Beatles thing anyway, but it's almost as if everything that has been done, songwriting wise, you know, Paul's sort of pretty much like there. He'd done it first, you know.
Definitely.
And that's just inspiring, I think, in itself. But it's funny because I had to write something after I'd done it, and for the press department for the PR company that we were working at, and when I started writing about it, it definitely felt like more. When you say a concept album, I definitely think I didn't know I was doing a concept album, but it sounds to me like it's a stage play of some sort, because it opening up with a clock, and it was almost like the time. It starts with time, and then time starts to just dissolve, and it morphs into music, and it just melts into the music and then into the story, and time stops. And I think it was a slightly autobiographical piece, or definitely not about me. Maybe it was sung in first person, but it could have been about somebody. And so when I was writing this brief synopsis of the album that was meant to say things like drums by Joey, it was like guy down at the seaside, you know, in a beach hut. He's got the love of nature, but he hasn't got romantic love, so he needs to leave the beach hut. So he leaves the beach hut, and then when he turns around to look at the beach hut and say thank you to the beach hut for being his home for so many years, it's a cuckoo clock, and he realizes he's a cuckoo bird. And then it's not been his nest at all. He's been just kind of like, it wasn't his. So anyway, he flies off. Anyway, it goes on like that, and I just like wrote this stuff, and I thought, Brian, that sounds like some kind of musical, or you know, I can imagine that on stage where there's this cuckoo, this guy dressed as a cuckoo, and in a beach hut, you know, as a fisherman, and it starts off and it's dancers, and you can have somebody like, oh my god, I'm writing
a musical.
You know, I don't think I think in the same way as album. I think probably more like I'll probably move into stage somehow, because I can see this thing on stage where it's just more visual. You've got story, you know, because I sit here, and when I'm not writing songs, I get stories that come to me. If I mix the story with the song and, you know, words and singing, it's almost like not as important for me as an artist now. I haven't got this zest to want to be, you know, because when you're younger, you think, oh, I want to be like as big as Paul McCartney or the Beatles, or it's about personal goals, isn't it? In that way, you think, oh, to be known as an artist in that way, and that's, I think I've moved past that now, because, or it's just ended. Maybe it's a gradual thing. Maybe it ended overnight, but I don't have that same ambition anymore. But a new one is coming through, and maybe it's to do more stage in that way, and to not even be part of it in the end, because, you know, I don't feel like I have a need to even sing these songs. You know,
well, you've got such a beautiful way of, you know, expressing these feelings and these thoughts that you have, you know, and it's so visceral and romantic and emotional, you know, so there's absolutely no reason that couldn't become, you know, something that you give away to other people to do, you know, and it totally comes out in that record. It's so lovely. It kind of, you know, at the time when it came out, I gave it a listen, but just revisiting it today, it was just, it was really took me on a journey, that record. It's so beautiful. And it was kind of a long time, right, since you put anything out when you released that album.
Yeah. That's why I'd like to get up to speed with just putting out music anyway, because it's it doesn't have to be finished in that way. I think that's the thing, especially as this virus is kind of like, it's showing everybody that just don't be so much of a perfectionist. Just like share your music, share like you with this. It's like you probably thought about doing a podcast for a long time, but it's like, this has got a way of kicking people up the bum with doing.
Absolutely, and especially like you said about perfectionism. Yeah, just like just getting it out there, or sticking on a camera and doing a live stream, or people actually. I mean, I have arguments with certain members of my band all the time about mixes and, perfectionism. And it's just about getting it out there. People don't give a shit, do they? They just want to hear the song and the performance, and they want more of it. And if they like you, they're going to love it no matter what state it's in, really. Obviously, if it sounds like shit, then less people are going to probably give it a chance. But, I think...
it's like those early ones there's something about them, So ones will evolve. I mean, I like it when I see some people, they might start with a yoga class, and at first it's just like a microphone with being blown around in the wind in the park.
Yeah.
And then you see them a year later, and it's like they've got camera angles from up in the trees.
Yeah.
They've got one of those things that flies around like a wasp, and they've got a camera on that too. And
people like to see growth as well, don't they, and progression, and they like to feel like they've been part of your journey as well, don't they?
Yeah. It's not all about coming out guns blazing with the most perfect everything. I mean, you see that with people as well. They do that kind of boxing analogy where they just want the big punch that's going to just make them look amazing. But meanwhile, the guy that just like chips away and wins on points.
Yeah, definitely.
Slow and steady sometimes.
I love your use of metaphor. It's just brilliant. It's just like everything there's an answer for, isn't there? with you it seems it. I feel like I've sort of had an hour of therapy here. I feel amazing. I feel ready to go and write, Nick.
Good. If that's my job, then I'll gladly do that one. I certainly do.
Honestly, mate, it's super inspiring, and I won't keep you too much longer because I think we've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes already. But
cool.
I really appreciate it. Just before you go, I've been doing this section with every guest I've had on the podcast so far called One Night Only, and basically I'm giving you the option to pick a supergroup that you could be in, or a five-a-side football team. I don't know. Are you into football much?
My football is only like Johnny Hollins and Peter Osgood and Housemate and Peter Benetti.
Yeah, so you're not particularly up to date. Well, that's okay. But yeah, it's funny the musicians who have opted to go for the football team, but you can pick either. But it'd be super interesting to know if you could be in like an all-star band, who you'd have in the band. So there's you on guitar and vocals, of course, and then who would you put around you?
God, I'd definitely have Johnny Marr in there.
Would you? Yeah, you're a big fan.
Oh, yeah. What a, he's like you always need somebody that's really, really. If I was making clothes or something, he's like a master stitcher. You'd have the master stitcher that was just there weaving.
Yeah.
Really brilliant cloth beside you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean those tapestries that he wove. Weaved. Amazing things. Yeah. So he's been in brilliant bands as well. It's not just the stuff he weaves. When he played in the Pretenders as well, he played those songs really well. He was in the Pretenders when Blair Cunningham was in the Pretenders.
Yeah. Oh, what a great guy Blair is. I don't know if I told you actually, but a couple of years ago we bumped into him in Chiswick, I think, and ended up having a curry with him. It was so lovely.
Would you remember when I was with Blair and we bumped into you?
Oh, that was another time, wasn't it? Yeah. It was like, it was like sliding doors. We just kept bumping into Haircut 100 members, post studio usually. Yeah.
You know, when Sarah and I went on a first date, Phil Smith, the saxophone player, was there.
Right.
It's like, I always remember that. Just that, you know, V&A. You know, Phil Smith was there.
Amazing.
So definitely Johnny Marr. I think I'd have Prince. Does it have to be Dead or Alive? Because just Prince can play.
Dead or Alive. Dead or Alive.
He's God. He's good, the God of everything. God of talk about confidence. You know, supreme confidence. So, you know, his musicianship. Everything about him, everything is all round. I couldn't believe what I was seeing when I saw him live. I saw him live about 3 times, and you know, there were completely different shows every time I saw him. And the last one was down in Kent when they arrived on a helicopter, all jumped out and jumped on stage and just started sounding like jamming. But what they were doing was sound checking.
Right.
So they would obviously come in early and set up their whole stage, but they just came in and it was kind of just improvisation. But it was also suddenly worked out. This improvisation was doing stuff and then going into different, not just tempo changes, but different keys all at once.
Almost like an overture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was calling it out. And then he was dancing, and the dancers were dancing with him. And you just thought, this would have been choreographed for a year if I was doing it. How on earth? And, you know, the confidence and ease with which they were doing it as well. You know, again, it's that thing of not being scared and not having the self-deprecation and kind of going, am I really a good? Oh, I'm not sure. Are you sure about this? And, you know, being as stiff with it. And that whole thing of the brass players were just, you know, obviously they're brilliant musicians, but they're just then forgetting that and just celebrating their talent, but also enjoying playing what they were doing. And so you, as an audience member, you're just sitting there kind of going, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And spotting them, it's like a circus going on and people spinning around and doing stuff. And the sound coming out, you just thought, you know, when you got the drummer going, and the whole band playing with him, and then into the previous thing, you just, whoa, what else is here? You know, and then there's Prince going, there's Captain, and he's going, and other dancers coming in and going, and then suddenly stopping like, oh, and they'd be off and just going like, I just want to, and then going off into some song that he'd just done, and doing 3 bars of that, and then doing another song, and then somebody just doing a few bars of nothing compares to you. I just couldn't believe this, you know, in the helicopter, you know, and they were just doing this, like they'd all bundled on stage and having fun. That was one of the gigs. So,
wow,
having him in your band,
yeah,
the super confidence where somebody so obviously not terrified to be on stage. You know, we've all seen that amazing guitar solo he does with Jeff.
Yeah.
Danny Harrison and stuff.
While My Guitar Gently Weeps, right?
Oh man,
It's just incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but I used to have daydreams of doing something like that in my school. You know, just grabbing a guitar in the school assembly and playing like that, and Guitar Hero and things. So, yeah. So Prince.
Okay, how about the rhythm section?
I think Prince would do the whole thing. But Yeah, God. Bass players, God, there's so many. I know so many bass players. And I love so many bass players as well. I think the Blair on drums, anyway.
Blair, yeah.
I mean, he in the pocket doesn't even come into it, you know. I mean, he is so in the pocket, isn't he? So solid. I mean, he even made songs that were supposed to be kind of, you know, there's a song Hector on Under used to have called "Surprise Me Again," which is quite loose, quite kind of. It started out very like an early Genesis beginning, you know. It's a bit proggy, and then goes into a sort of bit slightly Joseph K kind of orange juicy thing. And Blair on it just makes it groove. It almost could be funky. It just sounds like it's just yeah. He just does it innately. It's just in him to be like that, to be in pocket. If you just said, like sometimes at gigs I used to just turn around and go, "Hit me B," and he'd start drumming. He'd just be smiling at you, and then it'd be like it's drumming. I don't know, and he could drum for ages, and it would just be exactly all the time. There's no wavering at all, and you know, and he's got the art of being able to less is more with Blair. You know, he won't just in drum fills. He's like the opposite of Keith Moon in every way. I could never ever imagine Blair being in The Who. No, I think that would be the gig. But you know, I couldn't imagine Keith Moon being in Earth, Wind and Fire either.
No. It'd be one hell of a party though.
Yeah. Bass players. That's an interesting one. I think McCartney. I think he's my favourite bass player.
He'd be good for he's got a couple of tunes in his back pocket as well if you ever needed some extra material.
He has, hasn't he? You know the acoustic out, and I think he's got a good drive, work ethic as well. I mean, apparently he just drove the Beatles. The reason that they had so much stuff and songs finished was because of his work. I mean, look at him playing live now. I mean, he doesn't need to do that.
No.
But he's doing it. He gets out there all the time and he just gigs and sings.
You know what? I saw him a couple of years ago I think it was in Birmingham. It might have been the NEC or something, like a big arena in Birmingham, I think. It might be called something else now. And he's always got sort of a bad rap for being a bit cheesy and a bit twee or whatever, hasn't he, McCartney? But there was this guy, he was doing the whole double thumbs up Beatles thing, you know, and there's this guy, and he must have been asking him to sign his CD or something, you know, and you could tell McCartney's got an ego about him, you know, but he's still cheery and happy and jolly. And this guy just would not stop. And he was sort of like talking to the audience in between songs. And he was like, "You what, mate? You what?" And he's like, "You want me to sign your CD now?" And he was just like, "I'm a bit busy, man." and the whole audience just obviously, and then he went and signed the CD for this guy. And then, you know, so it was all like sort of a bit cheesy and whatever, just made a little joke. And then he just sat at the piano and went, "The long and winding." And you're just like, you forget that man has written, you know, just the songs he's written, you know.
Yeah. And you realise that, you know, not everybody's going to write that. I mean, he's the one. He's the like Mozart of our age, you know.
I totally agree. Yeah.
He's just amazing. I mean, it's an honour to even be sort of alive in the same period. It's brilliant.
Well, not only are you alive in the same period, mate, you're creating beautiful pieces of music as well. If he's Mozart, then you're Bach or someone, and it's been honestly, it's such a privilege to to catch up with you, and you're super inspiring. And I just want to, thank you so much for.
What am I dog bark?
Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, so great to catch up with you, man.
Yeah, likewise, man.
So there we have it, another episode over. Thanks so much to Nick for being on the show, and thank you all for listening. For more info on Nick and his upcoming album, you can go and visit nickheyward.com. Next week's guest is a brilliant artist and drummer, Mat Hector, best known for his work with Iggy Pop, Sinead O Connor, and most recently Razorlight. So make sure you tune in for that one. Please tell your friends about the pod and go give us a like on Facebook at Stayin Alive Pod, and give us a 5-star review on iTunes. This was a Jesse Smith production. Music by Neil X, Mark Garfield, and me. If you or your friends or your business or whatever are interested in sponsoring the show, you can get in touch at stayinalivepod@gmail.com. Stay safe, look after one another, and until next time, stay alive.